Hey guys, welcome to part 2 of journey number 2. I hope you guys enjoy. Has anybody talked to you about your ultrasounds recently? And I was like, no, why? And my heart is sinking. Like, what is about to be said to me? And she's like, I'm just going to show you the screen. And so she turns the screen and my mouth drops. By this point, if you guys haven't watched part 1 of journey number 2, I would go watch it right now. Are you guys ready? Twins. There are 2. And I looked at her and I was like, I knew it. It's going to make me tear up. Because I had, for some reason, I don't know why, always wanted to experience a twin pregnancy. And so I had been praying, like, if you just let me experience this twin pregnancy, I will be forever grateful. And I was like, I'll never do it again. And which obviously I'm doing it again. But that was another conversation, another prayer that I had. Anyway, so I was like, I just want to experience a twin pregnancy. And here I am. I'm getting this experience. I'm getting this twin pregnancy. And so it was a prayer answered. And not only was it my prayer answered, a fun fact about my intended parents is they were going to use 2 surrogates because they wanted a twin. They wanted twins. And it is not ethical to transfer more than 1 embryo to a surrogate because you risk multiples, more than just twins. And so it's just not ethical. So they were going to use 2 surrogates to try and get these twins. And I'm pregnant with twins. Identical twins, 1 embryo split. And so not only was my prayer being answered, but they were getting what they wanted from this journey as well. And it was just a beautiful, touching moment to be in. Like I'm thinking I'm about to hear some bad news. And I mean, obviously the ultrasound tech didn't know how I was going to handle it, but it was just, I was shaking. I was happy. I immediately took a picture of the little ultrasounds that she printed out, and I sent it to the intended parents, and I sent it to my husband, and I sent it to my coordinator. Just so happy. And the intended parents messaged back and they're like, am I seeing this correctly? I was like, yep, it's twins. And she's like, I knew it. I knew based off of your betas that they were such a high number, higher than mine. I said, I had a feeling as well. I don't know what it was. I knew I was pregnant with twins. When they did the transfer, I knew I was going to experience this. I can't tell you how. I knew it. And so I wasn't shocked when she showed me that screen. I was more just like, this is real. Like my feelings were valid. I knew it. And so that's also just being so sick and so tired. And I mean, I'm always more sick with each one, but this was nothing like I had experienced. And I was just, I knew it. And everybody was happy. Everybody was excited. But with twins comes more monitoring. And you have to take your medications longer. And so it was double the work in all sense of I was in for a long road ahead. Not a bad road, but just a long journey ahead. So if you don't know, being pregnant with twins is exactly how it sounds. It is double the pregnancy. It is like 2 independent pregnancy journeys smushed together. Double nauseous, double tired, twice as big. And with that came the worry of most twins are born via C-section. Most twins come early. And with my intended parents not living in the United States, I was worried, are they going to make it in time if I do go early, if it's spontaneous? Like, there was a lot of unknowns, because even though I wanted to experience a twin pregnancy, obviously I had never experienced a twin pregnancy. And so all of these stigmas that came with that, and one of my own sisters had been pregnant with twins, not identical, but they were very early and premature, obviously. And so I was just very worried about that. I'd never experienced a C-section. I didn't want to experience a C-section. Now, I am the kind of person, I will do whatever it takes to get this baby or these babies out safely, for their safety, for my safety. But that doesn't mean that I wanted to have to experience a C-section. So that was a very big worry of mine, and terrified that these parents wouldn't get to experience their children being born. So with being pregnant and being extremely nauseous, I didn't really enjoy the clinic experience. Not that I wouldn't ever work with them again, because my head nurse was amazing. I loved the atmosphere, but it was like anytime she would step out of the office, chaos would break loose. And I was once approached about, hey, your lab showed your thyroid's a little off, so we're going to start you on 75 mcgs. And I was like, wait, no, I'm already on medication. My medication is a lot higher than that. I've had this thyroid condition, and I just want to leave it up to my doctor to adjust the medication as needed. We've already been through this. We know, what we need to do. And they're like, oh, you already have a thyroid condition? I'm like, it is in the paperwork. How do you not know this? So they agreed to let my doctor adjust my medication and get me back on track, which, there was no issue there. And another aspect was towards the end of being released from my clinic. So I had to be with the clinic a little longer because of it being twins and everything. We were reaching the end of being with the clinic and getting released to my OB. And I was needing nausea medication. What I was doing was not working. And I was really, I couldn't eat. The thought of eating made me sick. I was surviving off of tomato soup, crackers, the Preggy Pops. Like, I felt like death. I was losing weight. Now the babies were growing very well. They were thriving in my womb, but I felt like death on the outside. The clinic prescribed me a nausea medication, and I hadn't heard from my pharmacy. Normally they reach out and say, hey, you have a prescription ready. I hadn't heard from them, so I called them, and they're like, well, there's an issue with the clinic. They haven't done something that they need to do. And so I was getting in touch with the clinic. They were giving me the runaround. My intended mother was getting in touch with the clinic, and we kept getting the runaround. And so finally, my case coordinator, bless her soul, she is absolutely amazing, advocates for me at every step. She got my OB involved. And so my OB ended up prescribing a medication because there's two things going on at once here. So I'm in the process of being released to my OB. I get my last medication calendar, and on the medication calendar, they put their little color code is red means last day of this medication. And so I get my last medication calendar, last day of progesterone shots, and I'm like, we're both, my case coordinator and I, are under the assumption that I, after this, am released. It had been a month, and I hadn't heard from the clinic at all. And so in that month period where we're getting released to my OB and everything, my case coordinator gets in touch with my OB and they prescribe me this medication, and I get it, and it's really, really become a lifesaver. It's helping me. I'm able to eat more, get my weight back up, all within this time of not really hearing from the clinic. So it really honestly felt like, because we were about to be released, that they kind of just didn't care anymore. And so they weren't really caring about getting this medication to me and doing their part. And so anyway, that's all kind of happening at once. And this month goes by. I've been now seeing my OB. I already had my first OB appointment. And the day of my first OB appointment, I get a message from a lady at the clinic, and she's like, hey, I need your beta results. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I've been released to my OB. And she goes, no, you haven't. And I was like, I have the email right here that said I could start seeing my OB, make my first OB appointment. I said, I haven't been taking medications for a month because I've not even received a new medication calendar. It said to stop on this day per your caller code. And it was just like this big ordeal. Well, they were like, we did not release you. And I was like, yeah, you did actually. And I haven't heard from you for a month, which was not like them. Like, we were always in contact, making sure that like medications were going well, what appointments I needed. So it was very unlike them to not get in touch with me for a month. And that is what had happened after we had received this email basically insinuating you're released to your OB. So that was a deal in and of itself. And I'm normally a very polite person, and I believe I handled the situation politely anyway when I had the phone call with the clinic. But basically I was like, you're not going to tell me that I did something that I wasn't supposed to, when I make sure that I am following appointments, following medications to a T. Like, I would never stop taking my medication. And I was so fearful that the intended parents who are attached to these emails are going to think that. And even after I got off with that phone call, they sent another email still making it seem like they were not the problem. And I emailed back letting them know, per our phone call, because my intended parents are attached to this, they were completely disregarding the phone call that we had just had. And so I said, per our phone call, you know that these were the circumstances and all this stuff. So we moved past that. Basically, they just wanted to see my betas again, and then they would officially release me. So I go back to the doctor that same week, get betas for them, and they're like, oh, yep, everything looks good. You're released. I'm like, oh, I thought I already was released, but now I'm seeing my doctor, my regular OB, and I'm actually not seeing my PCP this time. One, because she had some personal medical issues herself, so she was not able to see me. But also, with it being twins, I had to see two doctors. I had to see my birthing OB that was going to be delivering the baby, and I had to see a high-risk OB as well for her opinion, just to make sure that the babies were growing as normal. And so we learned that the embryo had actually split early on, which is best case scenario because both babies had their own sacs, and they weren't competing with one another for nutrients. Now, most may say, well, those aren't identical twins then. No, please research. If an embryo splits early on in the process, they can have their own separate sacs. And I know this because there was a time where an ultrasound tech had told me, no, those aren't identical twins. They would have had to have implanted two embryos. And I'm like, that's against contract. They can be sued. This is not what happened. And then when you look it up, you can see the information that, yes, embryos split early on can have their own sacs. So best case scenario with twins, they had their own sacs, they weren't competing with nutrients, and they were growing flawlessly. So that relieved some of my worries in that sense. But yeah, I had to see the high risk specialist and my regular OB. So there was like double the appointments. I couldn't see them both in the same day because of my children's school schedules. And so one day I would go to my OB and then the next day I would go to the ultrasound. But everything was doing great. Even though I felt like death, the babies were growing, they were thriving, getting bigger. And the very first time I get told about their weights, one was in the 90th and one was in the 75th. And then at this time, I'm only getting ultrasounds, I think, once a month. And so then the very next month, both babies are in the 90th. And then both babies are in the 90th. Not only 90th for weight, 90th for length, like high 90s. Like they're thriving in there. The intended parents and I were staying in contact throughout this. We're getting all these ultrasounds, all these betas, everything's going as planned. And then around January, now I don't know if this is like an IVF thing or a twin thing. I don't know. But come January, so my due date was actually March 12th. And the twins had been in the 90th percentile, very big twins. No, I did not have gestational diabetes or anything like that. I was healthy. They were healthy. But they had consistently been in the 90th percentile, weight, height. I am huge by this point. So my due date's March 12th. Now my doctor will not let me go past 38 weeks because they are twins. That's the longest I had to go. Now, he also said, I will not take you early. We're going, unless there's, like, you are in danger, they are in danger, we're going to let you go for as long as you can, up to 38 weeks. And so come January, I start feeling contractions, and there were, without going into too much detail, some other pregnancy labor signs that I felt was cueing me that I was about to go into labor. But again, I go in, I am monitored for the contractions. I am having contractions, but I'm not dilating to where I'm in active labor. I did not have to walk around the hospital like last time. They just basically said, go home, wait it out. You start feeling worse, start going into active labor, come back. I was like, okay, I can do that. Barely moving at this point. I mean, I am huge. I could hear my footsteps through the house. I'm very light on my feet. And so the fact that you could hear me coming from a mile away, that says something. So anyway, we tell the intended parents, well, because my worry is, oh my gosh, my doctor said, I don't think you're going to make it to 38 weeks, but this is what we're shooting for. My intended parents, at least the intended mother first, she comes down for a couple weeks ahead, and then the intended father comes, and we spend some time together, and it's great. This is the first time I'm meeting them in person, and it was just, again, a warm welcoming. We embraced each other in a hug the first time we saw each other. She brought gifts. I had gifts. They met my children, singing with my children in restaurants, not a care in the world, just beautiful, beautiful people. And we spent all this time together. By this point, I'm having fetal movement tests and once a week, OB appointments once a week, ultrasounds once a week. So many things going on. Babies are thriving, babies are growing. And I'm just like, get these babies out of me, please. Like I'm dying. Like, I don't want them to come early because I want them to grow as long as they can, but also get these babies out. If I look painful, if my stomach makes you cringe, imagine having it, feeling it in person. Every day it felt like my skin was ripping. I mean, I could physically feel it. My poor belly button couldn't take any more. Paper thin. Awful. First time, by the way, that I ever even got stretch marks from pregnancy. I mean, my child described it as looking like I was a kangaroo, like I just had a kangaroo pouch on me. I mean, it hung so low because one of the babies sat so low and one baby sat so high, and there was absolutely no room. Like I was all baby. And these poor guys had no room in there at all to move around. Now, baby A was way more active than baby B, but baby A had all the room, and baby B was like up in my ribs, and oh my gosh, it was so painful. I would push him down all the time, that poor little guy, but I couldn't help it. I couldn't breathe. I was out of room. No position was comfortable. I was like, I am never doing this again. I am done. I'm not doing it again. This is awful. Like, I never want to feel this way in my life. My nausea was worse. My exhaustion was off the charts. My stomach couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't sit. I couldn't stand. I couldn't lay. I had no relief ever. Ever. I was like, I'm done. I'm not doing this again. I told God I wasn't doing this again. I'm done. This is it. And then came time.